2022, the recall that broke my call center. I worked for most of 2021, 2022, and 2023 for a call center for a specific client that manufactured a specific line of devices. As an inbound agent, we would help patients in European markets use their device and provide some troubleshooting. NDAs prohibit me from mentioning anything more specific. It was a WFH type of deal, which was very cool, and while the pay was rock bottom, the hours weren't bad, and the volume of work was minimal. As an inbound agent, this was the dream. I just had to pick up whatever calls came in, and I could do whatever I wanted on the side. Suffice it to say, many games, books, movies, and series were played, read, and watched during this blessed time. Early in 2022, rumors started that one of the devices had a recurring issue that could lead to a recall. Midway through 2022, rumors of the recall were becoming more and more substantiated, and I was approached by project management to join their staff training department. Basically, they were in the process of bringing in dozens of agents for each of the markets from which the device was being recalled, and my job would be to train them solely on questions and processes regarding the recall and nothing else. The recall had already started in North America and had yet to be announced in Europe, and on the U.S. lines, they saw the number of calls to customer service increase tenfold. The client had asked our little call center to bring in many agents, as they were expecting a massive increase in calls due to the imminent recall announcement. They were under the impression that the existing inbound teams were understaffed for the coming wave. In short, they panicked, thinking European customers would behave the same as their U.S. counterparts. Problem number one. The new recall agents were hires and transfers from other projects that were scraping the bottom of the barrel. No hate to them, but we did not get the best and brightest. Of course, we got what we paid for, which was minimum wage plus bonuses, which leads us to problem number two. The new recall agents had extremely limited missions and therefore a very light workload. This was a matter of some discontent for the existing inbound agents, who were being paid exactly the same for much more work. Problem number three. All of this was taking place amidst a large back-to-the-office campaign. People did not being forced from their homes and into the offices for many a reason. Worse yet, recruiters weren't aware that everyone was being called back to the office, so new hires were still being told they would be WFH. So we start training the new hires, and once they get on the line, nothing. Customers in our markets simply did not call to ask about the recall. They got the letters and emails, and they all pretty much understood what they needed to do. Most didn't feel the need to call us. So for most of the day, these new agents were sitting all day in the office with nothing to do but being rowdy and annoying to the inbound agents, who still had to do their usual customer service tasks, all for the same pay. And since calls on the recall line were few and far between, the agents' training was soon forgotten, and what little skills they had were not maintained. When the occasional call came through, the performance was disastrous. Very soon, project management started trying to course correct. All recall agent hires were frozen, and any recall agent still being trained was instead shifted to the inbound agent line. This displeased those recall agent hires, who were looking at quite a bit more work than was initially promised. As many recall agents were let go as possible, which wasn't difficult since disciplinary problems were rampant. Some of those being made redundant were sometimes let go in cruel and unfair ways, which I shan't go into. The problem had gone from pretty bad to catastrophic, and by that point most of the workforce was fed the F up. After that, there were still recall agents for whom we needed to find things to do. So management decided to train them to become fully fledged inbound agents, without giving them any sort of choice in the matter, of course. We had to start training them from the ground up. From the beginning, they weren't the most competent of employees, but their time in the office had increased issues of rowdiness and uncooperativeness, so their training took even longer. Worse yet, our regular inbound training included an assessment that, if failed, would lead to the termination of the trainee. Since in our usual onboarding, this assessment took place during the inbound agent's probation period, we were still able to legally terminate people for failing this test. But these agents had already signed their contracts and were well past their probation periods. Some recall agents realized this and just started showing up and not doing anything, purposely failing their upskilling tests in order to not be put on the inbound line and be perpetually kept in training until the company decided to let them go without cause, with a significantly more interesting severance package. At this point, morale throughout the project was at rock bottom. Everything sucked, and whatever management did only seem to make things worse. Being part of the training team, I was privy to many complaints and saw changes coming. Eventually, the project started talking about downsizing the training team I was a part of, and being the last and I knew I'd be the first out the door. I decided to cut the cord and look for new work, which luckily I got rather quickly. That's it. That's the story of the 2022 recall, which turned my quiet, easygoing little call center job into a bitter mess. What about you? Do you have any stories of recalls that went wrong? Hiring campaigns that went nowhere? Difficult trainees and unfair work practices?